The ANC in Gauteng, we do understand that Pule Mabe, who's the national spokesperson of the party, is about to address the media. And of course, we were in conversation with Natasha about it a little earlier on. Let's see then what comes out of that briefing.
The policies of the ANC seem that, delegates are actually in commissions. Was this something that was actually spoken about? We have commissions around peace and stability that also talk to the safety, of communities around the country. So that's, what I want to know. Thank you.
This will be the last brain brief.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just to add to my colleague, sorry, Amanda Kosa from the Sunday Times. Did you also discuss the issue of increasing tensions between South Africans and foreign nationals that are coming out as though we as South Africans are xenophobic? But there's a lot of tensions between. We've heard of rumors that there were threats by foreign nationals about this tavern thing, but we don't know. I'm just saying that's a very, very important issue in the country with movements like the Operation Tudula that are coming up. Was that an issue that you guys discussed? Thank you.
Okay. No. Thanks. Colleagues from the media. Well, it all boils down to one thing: our ability to protect our sovereignty. I think that's what is what all of you are asking. National security. Can we all say that we are safe in this country? Can we still believe that when we get out of our houses, at work, in newsrooms, we'll be able to get home safe? The assurance, and I think Zolega makes a point that, is this not going to work towards debasing the ANC? So there are a number of things that we are doing here. We have established community policing forums as the African National Congress. And CPFs, like civic movements, are part of what we characterize as organs of people's power. So we need to go back to the notion of organs of people's power. We need to work with our communities to be able to safeguard those communities. The ANC alone, come back Zoleka, the ANC alone will not be able, you see, even if the ANC wants to be a champion of social security, of safety, of law enforcement, the ANC can only do that if it works together with the people. We need our communities to be part of this conversation. It cannot be the ANC alone. We've got branches. I mean, we've got a network of over 3,000 branches of the African National Congress countrywide. We've got a membership of almost 2 million in this country. We've got a population of over 50 million people in South Africa. We voted for by more than 11 million South Africans in 2019. But we've got a responsibility to safeguard everyone, including those that did not vote for us. I agree, when we pay out grants, we don't say we're going to pay only Amanda and not pay Alu. We pay everyone. Because we're carrying government. The government of the ANC is people-centered. It's driven like that. So I accept your concerns, but go on to say that to address these concerns, we need to have total concession with everyone in this country. The people of South Africa must work with law enforcement agencies as well. They must not protect criminals. I mean, it's an act of criminality. What happened in Soweto, in Orlando, what happens in Maritzburg is an act of criminality. We must not elevate matters of criminality to suggest that they pose a threat to national security. This is crime. These are criminals. we must call on the police to act with the necessary speed to arrest these criminals and make sure that they make time sufficient for the crime committed in jail. These are criminals. Just national security. These are criminals. This is an act of criminality. It must be characterized as such. Because so we must understand them like that. These are criminals. So the police must act against these criminals. They must be brought to book. We have called on our communities. They must work with community policing forums. Because if you don't have these organs of people's power, the crisis you face is that our people are going to go for self-help. Someone was talking about the movements like Dudula and all of that. So to avoid a growing notion of self-help, we need to have these organs of people's power, civic formations, communities working together, making sure that they expose acts of criminality, establishments that sell this alcohol being properly regulated. I get it if you have a criminal syndicate running taverns in communities. It means they are transporting crime into those communities. So we have to understand that. But we rely on communities. I mean, we might not know. The ANC-led government might not know certain things. It relies on people. You know, I mean, we are people-centered democracy. We rely on people saying, these are the challenges we are facing in this community, and we believe these are the measures that must be undertaken to be able to make sure that we are safeguarded. You ask a question on police. And I think it was Lundugut. Of course, and your question links up with what Natasha asked as well. That as part of the discussion ongoing through our Peace and Stability Subcommittee, we are looking into those things. How do we safeguard? Because this criminal network also undermines our energy security. It's not just about the people that, the 14 or 15 people that were killed. It also has got to do with our energy security. People stealing cables. We ought to talk about that. You know, yesterday we were talking with the chairperson of the communications subcommittee, Comrade Ngenge. He makes a point that back in the days, I mean, he's much older than me and would have participated in organizational programs or the work of the ANC even when it was a band formation. He says, just banning Sasol, just bombing Sasol. Remember our Al-Qaeda bombed Sasol back in the days. Took time. Why? Because Sasol was safeguarded by the army. Our power stations now are guarded by grade A security guards. Baba jingla ni fela nje udo ya fela security kimaka shule or guard power station. A national key point. National key point. The apartheid government, one thing they did was to make sure that our national security key points are safeguarded by the army. Maybe that is the call that the ANC need to start looking at. We need the army to play that role. We can't have security officers board being the one that authorizes people who must go and safeguard a power station. Grade A security, grade B, grade C. Ashule, go guard a power station. So we need to change that. We need the state to take an active role, and I think that's the question that you were all asking. The state must take an active role in safeguarding these national security key points, but also developing regulations that makes it impossible for people to just operate and run as they wish. Well, we have always spoken about building better and safer communities. Actually, This was the theme of our elections in 2014, and we still repeated the same in 2019. You know, seeing policemen and women graduate from police colleges in the past was part of our national pride. We need to bring that back. You know, we had a big, was it Amanskral Police College? You know, every year we saw them graduate. We need to have that. We need to instill that pride. But also, we cannot exclude these things from the unattainable price of living conditions. It's true. Our people cannot afford basic commodities. The fuel price has gone up. There are many other issues that are making it difficult for our people to be able to sustain themselves. So we have said, just through our own social transformation efforts, that as part of looking into the social security space, we've got to say, what could be the role of the state towards aiding our people out of the situation that they are facing now? Because all of these things, the enyobeni, lack of recreational facilities, the shootings in Soweto, dismantling our national energy grid through stealing of cables and all of that, these things have got to do with unsustainable living conditions that our people find themselves in. So we must not exclude these things. While we want to make them an issue of the state, but we must not exclude them to the conditions that our people find themselves in. Increasing tensions, foreign nationals, we've got a clear. So part of what we discussed in our last National Executive Committee meeting was to look at the relevant immigration policies and then say, how do we use these immigration policies to make sure that South Africa's contribution towards creating a better Africa and a better world and silencing the gun towards Agenda 2063 is sustained? And we have said that we will use forums like the Pan-African Parliament, like the AU, our contribution in your G7 in BRICS, to be able to then say, welcoming people who are foreign nationals in the country must be regulated through policy parameters that allows for our coexistence. Because we would not have been able to achieve national liberation ourselves in this country without being aided by the late Dos Santos of Angola and many others throughout the world. But those who come to the country illegally, fake papers as if they sought or have achieved some asylum of sort, have got to be exposed. Because they are the ones that are undermining the relationship that we've always enjoyed with foreign nationals. We don't have to entrench, Amanda, anti-foreigner sentiments that come across as being xenophobic. We have got to coexist. How about that in this country? But we must exist legitimately. We must coexist legitimately. Those that come in this country to advance good causes, even if they come from foreign soil, for as long as they are here legitimately, must be allowed to do what they need to do in the same way that many other South Africans are living in many other countries. I mean, there are South Africans who are living in other countries, performing trade and all of that. So we've got to coexist. But we must expose a criminal network, whether done by South Africans or done by foreign nationals. So the reviewal of the immigration policy which Comrade Aaron Motsoaledi is undertaking through the Department of Home Affairs has got to deal with that. Actually, in the National Executive Committee was briefing us that there are so many of these permits that get to be given out. Whether it's by birth, it's by marriage, it's is study permit, it's work permit. You know. So you have got to look at that and consolidate them. Make sure that, because if you don't, then you have unscrupulous officials who begin to abuse those. So he briefed us in the National Executive Committee that they are looking at that as part of reviewing the immigration policies. I'm sure that because we are sitting the policy conference of the ANC from the 27th to the 29th of July, we will be able to then attend to all of those matters, so we'll make sure under all of the other things that you raised, when we do an engagement on peace and stability, we'll address that. This issue of immigration also falls under peace and stability, so we'll deal with it as well. So maybe what I must do is to talk to Comrade Mahlobo and talk to Comrade Aaron.
No, he already briefed members of the
Yes, brief members of the media.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
But
But I think, no, I know, but I think owing to these latest developments, it becomes necessary to then say, what are the enforcement measures that we are taking into account to be able to address this situation? Sure, yeah, it's quite serious. I think I go to the conference. So want you comrades to feel safe.
So you're the last one.
Okay. Pule, you speak about communities speaking out against crime, right? But there are a number of communities, I mean, I'm sure we've been general reporters before, and we've spoken to communities that have said that we report crime, right? But those same people, if I, for example, report a tavern that is operating illegally or is operating outside of the hours that it's supposed to operate in, that there's an exchange of money, right? So I understand that in the policies that policy discussions that you're speaking about law enforcement and all of that, but there's no concern over corruption. I mean, even if I report something to, I know of many incidents where I have people that have reported things to law enforcement agencies, but because there's an exchange of money, there isn't any result, there's no outcome that comes out of that. So how does the conference plan to tackle that? And also, Natasha,
okay, are you fine, Zola?
okay,
Can we?
sorry. The report reflecting on the July unrest also zoomed in on the fact that the police and the intelligence did not act on things that they knew were happening, right? So right now we see a trend, right? And I've spoken about things that are about the state being reactionary in the things that they do, right? Now, yes, we see a trend. How do you plan in the policy discussions that you're having? How do you plan to also look into that? Because it can't be that we wait for something to happen before we do something. You know what I mean? We wait for, okay, we see a trend. It's we see the Soweto, the shooting of 15 people.
Okay, that's fine. So let me assist. Let me assist because we need to be going back to plenary just now. Let me just assist. Look, we have got strong policies that were pronounced on as the African National Congress. Through our own peace and stability efforts, we're pronounced on what needed to happen. We've established community policing forums. We have ensured that we massify on the rollout of police stations. You see, corruption is a human conduct. it is not, the ANC does not sit in a meeting and say, we want corruption to take place in this form. That Roto Hira station commander Satsotsi, Sajia Cheletega Mrao. We don't say that. We don't do that as the African National Congress. Where there are people employed, either station commanders or commissioners or ex-constables who are taking kickbacks, let's expose those people. Because Agri ANC does not have a crime hotline. So no, but no. Remember Zolega. I understand. I mean, it looks like this is personal. You're quite affected. You know, maybe it's you need to be coming forward and saying, no, in my township, in my suburb where I live, I have been exposed to this crime. You know, so then we know what we are dealing with. Because the ANC does not go to communities and present itself as the Holy Spirit. It depends on the people in those communities to cooperate with the ANC, to expose these things. Let me make a point, because we're not going to finish if we do it like that. I think there's an important question you are raising around consequence management. That what do we do? What do we do? There are reports and records that demonstrate that the ANC has in the past taken action against unscrupulous conduct of officials. The introduction of the State Capture Commission is one such an effort. Enacting relevant legislations to clamp down on corruption, on fraud and money laundering. It's one such an action. Establishing a solid tax regime in this country through the South African Revenue Service to deal with illicit money flows and other conducts unacceptable to the citizenry. It's one such an effort. So when we say all of these things, we ought to also appreciate undertakings that we've already made to deal with wrongful conduct. What did we say as the ANC? Coming out of the 54th National Conference, we said that we want to build an ethical, capable developmental state. What does this mean? It meant that we wanted to marshal forward men and women who would be trusted by society, who would know that they must place the interest of the people they lead first than theirs. They must be selfless. And maybe because we are now in July, Nelson Mandela month, perhaps that is what we need to really invoke. So we can assure you that the policy discussion taking place in our conferences are also meant to make sure that we build that kind of an anchor. We are not going, no, Zolega, no, we can't. You can't do that to us. You are holding us hostage now. No, we need to finish. I think we've clarified all of the questions that you have raised. Yeah. We'll deal with all other questions as we proceed. Yeah. Can we close now?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thanks.
No. You can't do that to me, please.
No.
You are holding me hostage now.
No, that's fine. No. Thanks very much, guys.
That is ANC National Spokesperson Pule Mabe speaking there about some of the outcomes as they are, of course, continuing with the provincial conference in Gauteng.